You feel this nervousness on the phone there?
Sir, I've been trying to make an urgent phone call up there.
Well, I don't think it's something I want to do on an overseas phone.
You gotta make some phone calls. Hang up the phone. Prank caller. Prank caller.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Packernet After Dark. This is the call-in show of the Packernet Podcast Network. If you'd like to call in, if you'd like to participate in the show, please feel free to do so. The phone number here is 608-501-0718. New callers go directly to the front of the line. We don't have any new callers. Let's get started with Garrett.
I'm going to let you know what I'm thinking, Ryan. I'm thinking that the acronym for ESPN is Every Stupid Person's Network.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to your rant talking about LVN, and I honestly quit listening and watching those guys a long time ago. Probably when I started actually just exclusively listening to podcasts like yourself back in 2017. Those guys are out of touch. I don't know how the hell some of these guys get hired because they're morons. Every time they open their mouth, they let you know that they are a fool. And I just don't understand how so many people can listen to that garbage. So I second everything that you had to say about it because I couldn't agree more. Does LVN have a little bit to prove? Yeah, but I mean, every player, when they come into the season, they've got to prove it all over again.
Right.
I mean, it's just a new season. So you can't rest on what you did in the past. You've got to go out there and every single play prove that you are worthy of putting on that uniform. So, but the criteria and expectations that they put on these guys is so hypocritical. It's unbelievable. So, yeah, ESPN is garbage. Fox is garbage. Almost everything on the media these days on TV, the content is garbage. So it just makes me all the more appreciative of what you do, that you put something out there that is intelligent, thought through, and you honestly do your homework and study and dig for the facts. These guys are way too lazy for that. They just like to open their mouth and talk. So anyways, thank you very much for that rant. It was something that I wish more people could hear, Ryan. I've said that before. I wish there were a lot of people were just exposed to some of your comments just one time. So I'm out.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, and I mean, it's so weird. I mean, it's so painful going through the whole conversation about pressures and sacks all over again. It's such a I mean, it's. I don't want to be overly critical here, but there is I almost want to say it's like a baseline IQ test in a way. And that isn't to say that sacks aren't more valuable, because of course they are, but to have to explain the point of, number one, pressures, and number two, why you would look at pressure rate as opposed to cumulative pressures. The fact that I have to explain that to people, I can't have a conversation with you. I can't argue with you. I can't talk to you. I mean, it is so absolutely absurd to boil down a player's, 800 snaps on a football field to whether you had 6 sacks or 9 sacks. Do you understand how stupid that is as a percentage? Do you know what you're doing if you're saying that every time you sacked somebody, you did something good, and every time you didn't, you did something bad? You're basically saying there's almost no difference between any pass rushers from a percentage standpoint. And also, they are all completely useless. I mean, 10 sacks on an 800 snap season is a 1.25% success rate. That's what you want? That's what you're aiming for? You have to have a better metric. There has to be something that can capture the other 790 snaps that they didn't sack somebody and say whether they did a good or bad job. And if you can't do that, because every play that isn't a sack is a bad play, you suck at evaluating this. So either say, I don't know how to evaluate literally 99% of these snaps, I don't know how to evaluate. And so I can't tell you if this is a good or bad player. Or you just say that the 99% are irrelevant and, good players are at about 98.5% failure rate. Bad players are at 99.5% failure rate. What a stupid metric. Come on, man.
Hey, Ryan, long time no talk, man. This is Big E.
What's up, Biggie?
Just listening to the commentary and the scouting reports from way back to what we drafted and everything down to Mike Vrabel and everybody being garbage and all that stuff. And I am enthusiastic about giving you a call here real quick and just making a couple commentary. Let me preface this whole thing by saying I am old enough to be a scout in the stands with a stopwatch. I mean, senile, right? So that's where my perspective comes from. And we're talking about all these things transpiring, how we got here and all that. I'm thinking about my best fanning, my favorite fanning, my most pleasurable fanning comes from when I think about football and people around me are thinking about football, Packers in specific, as like a weather forecaster. We're talking about like the weather. Like we're talking about a guy, it's a 40. He's got a 40-inch vertical. He's got 34-inch arms, arms, and he's got we got a guy who's 320 pounds and runs a 4.940, and these are all like clinical specific things like inches of snow. You know what I mean? And you talk about it like how your season's going to be and how your guys are going to perform. And the bigger storm that your team is, that's what you're wishing for. It's got nothing to do with personality or, whether it's Micah Parsons hurt somebody's feelings. No. You're talking about when he comes, he's going to be a tornado. He's going to rip you up. And while the guys on the other side, Bears, whoever, it's just going to be a small drizzle, a little bit of rain for a couple hours, and then, it's going to be bright sunshine for us. You're talking about just what you start talking about specifics about what your guys are capable of, and even what they haven't seen. Like you take an LVN and you haven't seen this and this, but remember in college, look at the physical size of this guy, look at his speed, look at his possibilities. And while the other guys are talking about, well, that's really not going to amount to anything. It's going to be no inches of snow, and you're talking about feet, from coming from this guy. But I'll leave that analogy aside, but just talking in terms of what the possibilities are that you believe in, looking at what your guys have in their back pocket, what they're capable of doing. And who cares about personalities? We don't care. Storms don't have personalities, right? You're just talking about big numbers and being excited about the devastation your team's going to wreak upon somebody. And the social contract is so broken. Millennials are so fourth generation after mine, talking about live and let live and all that. Totally get it. The problem is...
Part 2.
And what you get when the social contract breaks down is you get people you don't see eye to eye with, who, everything is okay. You can look at the world this way. There's my truth, your truth, all that garbage. And what it gets us away from is this unanimity of understanding what we are looking at. What is this painting on the wall in front of us, man? Is it a beautiful painting? Is it a painting that's done by a master? Or is it just modern art and that circle there is, means unity or whatever? No, we're all looking at the same thing, and that's why I love the storm analogy for that, because we look at storms kind of the same. We can look at football as just being football, and, people do stuff, and that was basically the only comment you got when a guy went out and wrecked his car or had a Viking party on a yacht in Lake Minnetonka or somebody, has a problem, a Vrabel has an issue. That's a little different because that's management, and that goes to some things that, are decisions being influenced. But regardless, what are we talking about here? That's what we need to land on, in my opinion. Not that this call is going to change the darn thing, but if we can keep that in mind, just looking at cold, hard facts, looking at specifications, looking at history, looking at a guy's capabilities and his dimensions and, all that kind of stuff, and just thinking and just craving to see that manifest itself on a football field. That is fun. What is this going to be next week? And all this other stuff is such a distraction. I don't know if it makes any sense or not, but good to talk to you again, brother, and thank you for all you do. Bye now.
Well, it's good to hear from you, Biggie. And no, I get what you're saying. I'll preface it with the same lame cop-out that I always do, which is I think you're right, and I get as far as the passion and the fun and all that, where that comes from. For my personal cop-out, the 7-day-a-week thing means we cover absolutely everything. It's a pretty wide net. But no, I think it's in terms of what you're saying from a fandom standpoint, from a maximal enjoyment, mental health, whatever umbrella you want to put it under. It is fun. It is better. It is more, I don't know if pure is the right word, but it is nice, and that's what's good about the season, when we can get back to just the things that are real, the things that are concrete. I'm better than you. I'm going to smash you, nana boo-boo. Off-season can get a little wild. It can get a little speculative. It can get a little philosophical. But I also think it's good because this is where you can grow more, because you have to. You have to start expanding. You have to start thinking about more things more broadly. I don't know that the Diana Rossini thing has really opened my eyes to much. Although I did say, again, it kind of makes me wonder about the relationships. And I think this is going to be a wide question. Makes you wonder about the relationships between reporters and, I don't know. You kind of look a little sideways now when the report comes out, like, what's that about? Been tweeting about the Broncos a lot. What's going on over there? But I get what you're saying. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. We got it's actually two different Drews, but that's all right. Are these really two? Oh, that's interesting. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right. That call didn't do anything. Let's try the other number. Maybe it's the same person calling from a different number or something.
Hey, Ryan, it's Drew from Green Bay.
Hey, what's up?
I watched the undrafted free agent linemen again and just wanted to see how they were. And what I saw, the interesting thing was they were all playing left guard. And so that makes me think that Goody is a little worried about Banks' health long term and wants, to solidify that backup position. But apparently Getzky and Barrett had both been centers in the past, or were in contention to be centers. But Getzky from Illinois, the weird thing about him was he was really good against defensive linemen, but when he got to the second level, he was horrible against the linebackers. Yeah. And I think he's got bad change of direction, so that kind of makes sense. With Barrett, he was sometimes he would just completely get destroyed right away off the line, and that's the worst thing, because that leads to injuries of your quarterback and big time sacks and turnovers. But he was a lot better at the second level. And then with Dylan Wade was the Auburn guy, and he just seemed kind of weak, to be honest. He also seemed kind of lost at times. Just weird things happened, and I didn't see an NFL talent in him. But out of the three, I guess I didn't love any of them. I guess I like Getzky the best, and hope that he can just keep him out of the situations where he needs to be on the second level as much. But maybe Barrett can develop. Maybe there's a little more there. Barrett actually played for Wisconsin and then transferred because he wasn't getting playing time. So, and he won the starting center job, but the reason he got pushed to left guard was because his teammate got sick, and then they just kept him at left guard. So that was kind of an interesting story. But anyways, that's what I saw on the film. So have a good day. Bye.
Yeah, well, I'll start with this. As far as the left and right, I probably wouldn't put a ton into that. I think these guys get lumped. Well, I do think you shouldn't be lumped into interior offensive linemen because center and guard are pretty distinct. But, these guys got to play somewhere if you're a guard. And I think even though there is a lot of talk about it's difficult to switch, I think there is an expectation that if you're an interior guy and you're a backup and somebody goes down, you're going to be, and I'll put it this way, I think versatility is going to be something that is non-negotiable if you're a backup. They don't want a guy that occupies a spot that is just a backup left guard. We need a guy that can be a backup interior offensive lineman. If you're a backup guard, fine. But I don't want to have a backup left tackle, a backup left guard, a backup center, a backup right guard, and a backup right tackle only. You know what I mean? They want versatility, period. But especially as a backup, I think that's going to be a requirement. So if any of those left guards can't play right guard, or they feel like they can't, or they can't trust them to play right guard, I don't think they're going to get the job. Which brings me to the next point. I think they have depth that they're content with. There are several guys that have kind of done a good job for us. Obviously we're talking depth, we're not talking starting. But if you look at our group, I think they like Jacob Monk, Kennard, Donovan Jennings, Travis Glover. I mean, to varying degrees, they like these guys. But the point is, having added Jagger Burton to the mix, I think with all the guys that you looked at, we're really just trying to maybe find one diamond in the rough that can come in and replace one of the other guys that we currently are content with as far as depth, which is going to be kind of tough because there's a lot of other guys already that are kind of on the fence. You look at John Williams, for example, who's a 7th-round pick. I mean, he's got a bit of a leg up on a lot of these guys. This is his second year. He was drafted. He probably has a lot more, I shouldn't say a lot more, but he probably has more talent than what you're getting in some of these undrafted guys. The benefit to the UDFAs, though, and this is always the opposite contention, is that we haven't seen a lot from you. And so if in year 2 of John Williams, all things being equal, I think the UDFAs get an upper hand because, guys like Williams, it's like this is year 2 and, I need to see more from you. So the benefit to Williams is that he should be better, but if he's not, then advantage goes to the younger guys because they always want to look at the upside. But yeah, I think we're just looking for one diamond in the rough that can replace some of the guys that we have. Because right now, I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have like 12 backup offensive linemen, not even including the 5 starters. So again, maybe just find one. All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Brian, how the heck are you? This is Nico in Idaho, just driving home from a busy night. And heard your rant this on the way to work, and I was gonna call in, but I couldn't because it's kind of busy. But it's like, so you know when you hear someone or you read a take online somewhere, and you could tell, does this guy even know the Packers? Like, I remember one time I was listening to a guy talk about the Packers, and he claimed to, and then he called Ecomenia St. Brown equanimous. And I'm like, dude, you can't even pronounce his name. So just stop.
Sure.
Like Brett Favre. Dude, you can't even pronounce the guy's name, and you're critiquing his play. How much do you not know about the Packers? But a lot of times when you see a take like that, it's because they're like a Jets fan or a Miami fan, or a Charger. And it makes sense, But it's kind of sad when the dumb takes are people that work for ESPN Milwaukee. I'm like, what?
Yeah, and I don't know if I mentioned it or not. I was going to. It is interesting because I had made the point, the whole line about, I do this for a living or whatever. But there should be an expectation if you do this for a living that you have a better understanding. I mean, sometimes I even for myself, because my memory is so bad, it's like, man, you should know this stuff. The stuff I have to relearn every single year because it just doesn't stick. salary cap stuff or off-season stuff. I don't remember. I have to look it up again every single time. Even stuff on the roster. I don't remember some of the depth, the like third string guys, and somebody that I thought was still here is gone. I don't remember how they're gone. Just stuff like that it's like, you probably should know that, but I don't remember. But I think there are sort of like big picture things that you should probably know and understand how things work. And I was trying to think how it's possible that you don't. And maybe it's this, that, or the other, because again, I have my stuff and maybe they just have different stuff. I don't know. But the one thing that I kind of came to is, in order to actually learn something, you have to be kind of open to learning. So that is, and I talk about this all the time, like when something happens and it goes against what you think, you have to be willing to be able to step back and go, why did I get this wrong? Maybe I kind of, and I've gone through this with you many times, like on air, where it's like this is a revelation for me, and it's changed the way that I view things. And you have to be able to go through those things. That's how you get to be somebody who's watched football for, again, not even having a podcast, just I've been watching football for a long time and I have a deeper understanding of things. But you have to go through those moments where you change your mind, essentially. You have to be willing to change your mind. And I think some people, and this does fall on the more negative spectrum, and I do think ESPN kind of represents the negative spectrum, I think these are people that are not willing to change their mind. And whenever something happens that butts up against what they think should be right, rather than saying, maybe there's something going on wrong with my thinking and I need to adjust my thinking, and then you go through the process and you learn and you understand, you go, oh, okay, now I understand something new. Instead, what you do is you say, that's stupid. They're stupid. So you never have to move. And if you never move, you never learn, right? If you've never changed your mind since you were 19 years old, then I'm sorry, you're as smart as a 19-year-old, which is to say you're an idiot. You have to be willing to evolve your way of thinking. And if you are somebody, and I do think this falls more on the negative, and you could say on the positive too, because everything's always good all the time. And anytime something butts up against that, you just flail against it or whatever. You have to be malleable. You have to be willing to go, based on my worldview, this should have happened. And it didn't happen. That means there's something wrong with my world. And you try to figure out what exactly that is and evolve your thinking. And maybe it is that the other party is stupid, but you still have to be willing to accept that maybe they do the stupid thing. The fact that this was not even on your radar when pretty much everybody else that I saw in the content creator space thought that this was an obvious no-brainer. And you like an entire network thought that there was no chance that this could happen. And then when it did, rather than going, what am I getting wrong here? You just say they're stupid, they're idiots, they're so stupid. You know what I mean? This is probably why you're going to get it wrong next time too, because you learned nothing from this process. And some of these guys have been doing this as long as I've been alive. There's no excuse for you to not have seen this coming. And again, maybe you're right and they're wrong and this shouldn't have happened, but there still needs to be a fully fleshed out worldview. And again, the fact that half of these guys, or maybe all of them, are looking at this, number one, as look at how much money it is, without even a baseline understanding of the fact that this is not a lot of money at all. This is garbage money. I mean, even I always talk about going back to 2020 just as sort of like a baseline. Even in 2020, this is not a ton of money. I mean, remember, we gave Za'Darius back in 2018? I think it was like $18 million a year, and that was a pretty hefty sum. But even then, we're talking 20 for being and I'm not even talking, that wasn't even top of market. It was just like, this is a lot for what we thought Za'Darius was, which is a backup. Because that's what he was in Baltimore. It's like, this is a guy who was like the number 3, number 4 backup guy, and we're giving him $18 million. We're not even giving that. And that was, 7 years ago? Wait, no, 8 years ago. I mean, it's just, there are so many levels to this of being inexcusably wrong. That's not to say that you have to have the opinion you should do this. You can say that I don't think we should do this. But even when you listen to Homer talk about his thought process, I thought it was even crazier. Because he was looking at it saying, and maybe he ends up being great and then we lose him. Hold on a second. So you're saying that in your plan, the only way this works in our favor is if he sucks and we cut him? But if he's good and he's expensive, then we can't afford him and we have to get rid of him. That's actually your plan? That's even worse. Because in reality, that would never happen. We would pay him. He would just be more expensive. But the fact that you genuinely believe if he's good that we'd have to let him go and that's what you want to have happen, and you think the Packers are stupid because they didn't listen to your plan, which is either he's bad and we cut him or he's good and we cut him. This is actually your plan, and you're going to talk about the Packers being stupid. Holy crap, dude. I mean, it's just crazy to me. Again, you have to be in a position where if you're going to do this for a long time, and that's whether you're in radio, whether you have a podcast, or whether you're just a fan, you might as well learn along the way. And if you're so inflexible to the point where you just wake up, you see something, and then you scream, you're stupid, without ever at any point trying to think things through and understand processes and you know, I don't understand it. I don't get it. Other than, I mean, I guess you got into radio because that's what you wanted to do. You just wanted to get into radio, and that's your pursuit. And, you know, the Packers just happen to be an avenue that you could get into because you like watching the Packers. But you're not actually looking to become like an expert in Packersology here. You want to be a radio guy. And so you're doing radio stuff. And radio people sometimes just yell, and you're trying to emulate, you know, what is his name? Well, I know in Milwaukee it would be Mark Belling, but who's the guy that passed away? Rush Limbaugh. You just want to be Rush Limbaugh, where it's just news comes in, you yell about it, and you're just trying to emulate that or something. Which, for the record, you can be a thinking person and be a yelling person. I like to think I walk that line fairly well. I don't know. Whatever. I get back to your call, but I was thinking about that the other day. I think it was during a different call. I don't know if I ever addressed it. I don't know, but just how do you get to the point of doing this for so long and learn nothing? I don't understand that.
I don't know who the guys were. I kind of recognize the main guy's voice, but the one guy goes, "Oh, that's blah blah something of Gary." Like, what? Was Gary a bad pick?
Yeah.
Now we all agreed.
I think that was Chimura. He was the one that came in. Like, I didn't even have a comment, and I was like, "Oh, good Lord!" Like, you're just such an angry, negative person at that point that I got nothing for you. Just you do you, brother.
You know, he didn't become a Bosa. He didn't become a Parsons. You know, but he was definitely not bad. There was a couple of years he was very, like, probably top 5 in pressure percentage, and that's very important. You know. Bad football players aren't out there with the 15, 16% pressure rate. I think one year it was even higher. But it's like such idiot, such dumbness. It's like how can you sit there and like you have access to PSF? You work for ESPN, for crying out loud. It's just annoying as crap. I think a lot of it. So I listen to Wildy and Tausch sometimes. Depends on what they're talking about. I don't care about football. I don't care about baseball and, you know, and basketball. But, you know, I'll listen to them talk certain Packer stuff. And actually, Tausch I really listen because of him. Wildy is kind of a complaining, whining, sissy who just likes to hear himself talk and pontificate. He can't ask a question and be like, pre-adventure, we discussed this episode of events occurring yesterday. It's like, what are you saying? Just ask your dumb question. I think he just likes to hear himself talk. I don't like to hear him talk. Hang on.
All right, we'll hang on. Here's part 2.
So yeah, Wildy annoys me, but Tausch is typically pretty smart, you know. Even today, the one I listened to today, he was talking about, I don't know if Jordan Love's ever going to be elite. And what did Tausch, first thing you said was, would you rather have, who's the idiot from Seattle? Would you rather have Sam Darnold be your quarterback or Joe Burrows? And he goes, Joe Burrow. And the reason why the reason why Wildy didn't think Love would be good is because he hasn't played well in the playoffs. And so he says, who'd you rather be your quarterback? Darnold or Joe Burrow? He goes, well, Joe Burrow. What about Darnold? And he mentioned another quarterback better than him that doesn't have a Super Bowl, and he picked that guy. Almost to say, shut up. It has nothing to do with winning the Super Bowl.
Right.
has everything to do with being a good player, which Donald's okay. He just was on a good team. You know, he like did at Trent Dilfer, where he was on a really good team and the team won the game. And his take on the whole signing the fifth-year option we're inevitably talking about. Boy, it took me a while to get there. Is okay. So it's a what 14 million, and he's getting paid $3 million this year. So really, it's 2 years. What? That's 17. So it's like 2 years, $8.5 million. That's even better, right? And Travis was right. If he's good, boom, he gets a contract. If he's bad, they cut cord and they're done with it. I don't know why. It's like people just assume because he doesn't have 10 sacks, he sucks as a player. So annoying. I think what it is, I know one of the clips you played was Homer. I think it's just some people just hate Gutekunst, and so they just hate everything he does.
Right.
I know Homer hates Gutekunst, just freaking hates him. He loves.
But this is what I don't like about it, and all these guys fall into it. You allow yourself to be stupid. You go down this path of like everything he does is going to be wrong, and you make that decision. I don't know why you make that decision, but I'm just trying to go down the thought process here. I don't want to give you credit. And everything is based on like, I need to be right. Okay? Because if I give him credit, then it looks like I was wrong on the big picture, right? So here's how I think the thought process works, but it ends up working against you. I'm focused on the big picture. Was I right about Gutekunst? Have I been right about Gutekunst overall? And so I need to minimize the good and maximize and even fabricate the bad. The problem is when you do that, you make yourself wrong every time you attack Brian Gutekunst, which means overall you've lost the argument. Do you understand that? If people listen to you and you have discredited yourself, and people hear you talk about Gutekunst and they have a couple brain cells to rub together, and they listen and they say, the thought process you're using to come to the conclusion that Gutekunst is an idiot is severely flawed. So why would I believe you about Gutekunst? It's sort of a fruit of the poisonous tree kind of a thing. Fruit of the poisonous tree is a legal thing, but the idea being that you discredit yourself to such a degree that when people listen to you, they're going to realize if I have to choose between you, who is a completely flawed person when you think and talk, or the person you're against, I'm going to side on the side of Gutekunst. Whereas you might even be right. Maybe you're right overall. But if you're going to lie and make things up or just sound stupid when you attack him, it's going to cause people to think, oh, Gutekunst isn't bad, you just don't know how to think. So he's probably a good GM. Whereas if you could just be more honest and call balls and strikes as they are, you know, you only need the 3 strikes, bro. And if you're saying there's been 3 strikes, it doesn't matter if there's also 3 balls, you got your 3 strikes. But no, 0 balls, 3 strikes, you're out. No, there was 3 balls. No. 0 balls, 3 strikes. Okay, well now I can't trust you as an umpire. And so we have to throw all of it out. Do you understand that? All of it needs to be thrown out. All of it is inadmissible in court. You're an idiot. Don't do that. Don't lie. Don't make things up. Don't exaggerate things. It makes you less credible overall because you make things up. So don't do it. You have to be willing to admit when the other side does well. And also, this is another thing people don't seem to understand. And this is where I've been hammering this over and over and over again, where I've said things change over time. A bad GM can do good things and be a good GM. A good GM can become a bad GM. We get so stuck in this, and I think politics has largely done this, where it's like, this is my team. You know, you're pro Packers and you're pro whatever political party, and so you just always need to hold on. And there's this feeling of like, I can't concede ground here ever. And this is why, you know, the most horrific things in the world always get defended on whatever side of the political aisle, because we just can never concede ground, because I don't want the other side to be right. And I don't want to be wrong, because I've been defending this my whole life. And so I can't let this go. But when it gets into this, I mean, it's like, as I've said, maybe Gutekunst needs to go. Does that mean I've been wrong all along? No. How was I wrong about him doing a good job in 2018? Because in 2026, assessing the last 3 years, which doesn't go back to 2018, I think he's done a poor job. Do you understand things change over time? Look at Ted Thompson. Was Ted Thompson a good or bad GM? He was a great GM. Well, what about the last 5 years? Yeah, it was bad. That's why the assessment changed to he probably should go. Things change over time. McCarthy was a great coach, right? Then we fired him. So was he good or was he bad? Well, he was great, and then he was bad, and then we fired him. Things change over time. Schneider was a great GM. Then he became a dog crap GM. And then he had 1 or 2 good years, and they fling themselves to the Super Bowl, mostly on the back of a coach. And again, suddenly it's, and by the way, it's only the anti-Gutekunst people that love Schneider so much. Because, why? Because it helped, in their mind, it helps their case. Should have had Schneider. He's a better GM. He's a better blah, 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 blah. That's why they went dormant for the 7 years that he was the worst GM in football. And then they win a Super Bowl, and it was all Schneider, bro. Thanks to those 2 good picks. That's what it was. But things change over time, and if you don't, that just means you're going to be wrong all the time. You're just always going to be wrong. If you're not willing to go where things are and just stay with whatever the truth is. All right? He was good, and then he became bad, and then he became good. No, it's just he's good. This is where I can catch Bears fans all the time because it's this player was good. Okay? So he's good. Well, he was good 3 years ago. It doesn't mean he's good today. With their corners. And Packer fans fall into this all the time, too. And I constantly try to remind everybody. And free agency is always this way, as I say all the time. This guy, everybody likes him because he has this name, and people associate the name with 5 years ago when he was good, and so he must still be good, and so we should go get him. He's so cheap. Things change rapidly all the time, everywhere. If you want to be right, you have to be willing to adapt and change your mind a billion different times and be fine with people calling you a hypocrite or whatever nonsense, because that's not even true. Why would my assessment 2 years ago of a situation be the same as today? And that's why, by the way, Rashawn Gary was a terrible pick, because the people who are inflexible don't want to look at when he was good. Same with Jair. Jair was an elite pick, phenomenal pick. Yeah, well, really? Because he's bad. You're talking about the end of his career? Do we just judge everybody by the end of their career? Fine. Then I'm sorry, Aaron Rodgers is a bust pick. And no, I will not allow you to go back to 2020 or even 2021 when he won this fraudulent MVP. Nope, can't go back to 2021. That was 5 years ago, bro. Nope. You have to just look at what he is today. No, things change over time. Things evolve. He was great. He isn't great. He had a great career. But again, they're going to pick and choose. Rodgers is elite, which is why we weren't supposed to let him go even when he was good. That's why, again, you hear this. It's funny because there's so many different themes throughout my podcast that we've heard over the years that fall into this exact category we're talking about. That's why we couldn't get rid of Rodgers. How could you let go of an MVP, Super Bowl caliber, blah, 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 blah? Why? Because we don't move off of that. We don't adapt. We don't change our understanding of what Rodgers is. This is just the label we've applied to him. And so you would be an idiot to move off of that. Yeah. But is he that right now, this second today? No. So why are you saying stupid stuff?
Loves the dude from Seattle. Just loves him. He just thinks if we had that GM, we'd have 5 Super Bowls. It's just annoying. And I'm pretty sure it's probably the same thing with the ESPN watching guys. They probably just hate Goody.
Right.
Which, you know what?
Schneider people are just anti-Goody people.
There's a lot worse GMs we can have. I think that's probably what it is. So I just hope Van Ness goes out there and just plays as good as we think he can. If he can, if he can get 7-8 sacks a year and be good at stopping the run, man, on his side, that'd be great. That'd be awesome. And hey, let's go, Pack Go. And caller us off.
I thought you were gonna do caller roulette. I guess not. Yeah, and again, for the record, because everyone's going to want to twist my words, Van Ness doesn't need to be Micah Parsons to be a good pick. I want him to be a solid complement to Micah Parsons. As long as Micah Parsons is healthy, we have to assume he's going to gobble up most of the sacks. Even plays where if Micah wasn't there, Van Ness would have gotten a sack. Guess what? He's going to be on his back already by the time Van Ness gets there. That's just part of the freaking deal. But I need him to be whatever role player he needs to be to help the defense work. He's going to need to set a solid edge. He's going to need to provide pressure when there otherwise isn't pressure. And he just needs to do his job and make sure to help this defense become what it should be. And yeah, I'm sure, again, because people are inflexible. No, but here's a pretty strong prediction. Pending like double-digit sacks, and even then you're going to find excuses. These inflexible people who didn't want him to get a fifth-year option will not change their mind. They're not going to change their mind, which is why you can throw any stat you want at them. It's not going to matter. They're going to dismiss whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. You can show them film, you can show them stats, you can show them anything. They will not change their mind. Now, if he gets to 10 sacks, you'll probably find half of them go dormant. The other half will make excuses for it. Well, he wouldn't have got that without Micah Parsons. They're already doing that. People that are posting positive stats, half of them dismiss the stats, and the other half say, well, how much of that is Micah Parsons? So they're going to do the same thing no matter what. Because it's not about, well, it is about Van Ness, but the point is they've made up their mind, and the more angry fans are the most inflexible people. They don't want to be wrong. They don't want to change their mind. And it just, that's it. They will never, ever change their mind, which, by the way, people that don't change their mind are people that don't learn. That's what learning is. I mean, just on a basic level, learning means you didn't believe what you believed 5 minutes ago. If you believe the same thing, then just take that back in time for eternity. When was the last time that you changed your mind? When was the last time you learned something? If learning means changing your mind, then you should be trying to change your mind as often as possible, because that's what learning does. Learning, you're going through stuff all the time and okay, like I knew that. Oh yeah, that's and then there's that moment. It's like, oh, there's that thing, and now I believe this or understand this or change my thinking to this as opposed to this. Congratulations, you learned something. You've grown as a human being. But so many people dedicate their life to never changing their mind, no matter what, and fighting as hard as possible, no matter how much evidence is brought to your attention, no matter how much is brought to you that says what you think is wrong, look at all this. That should be an exciting moment of, oh, wow. It's going to be uncomfortable as you have to, navigate through this person's being a jerk, and I don't want to tell them that they're right and I'm wrong. I'm sorry, I don't know how to help you through that process, but whatever that process looks like for you, please grab onto this new information and change your mind so you can grow as a human being for the first time since you were 10. And again, I know this happens on the positive side too, but it's just so much more obnoxious on the negative side because you spend your whole time basically being a Bears fan. What do Bears fans do all the time? They say our GM sucks, our coach sucks, our quarterback sucks, our team sucks. Well, that's funny. That's what you do. There's only a slight difference in that you do it because you want them to be better so that we win a Super Bowl, and they just want that to stay that way. But you're both the same person, and it's the reason I don't like you. And the fact that you didn't even come to this conclusion rationally, and that you're being irrational in your attempt to stay negative, even in the face of information that says otherwise, because you just don't want to be wrong, is what's so massively infuriating. If you would just be the kind of negative fan that just had high expectations, but regularly changed his mind, and were happy about and those people do exist too. There's no limit to the amount of people that are out there. But if you want to have high expectations, but then just be like, wasn't a fan of Van Ness, but look, 8 sacks with Micah getting this much and all that stuff. Like, I think he had a pretty good year. If you can do that, if you have that capacity, then we're good. But so many people will, no matter what happens, never like Van Ness. And the biggest reason is because, 8 years ago, they said they didn't like Brian Gutekunst, and they just can't change their mind because of the fact, honestly, it started when they drafted Jordan Love. That's when these people hated Brian Gutekunst, and that's why they will spend every waking second of their life Again, despite new information like, oh, I don't know, Jordan Love is our quarterback right now, and thank the heavens above that he is, because we have a top 5 quarterback in a time span when we never would have gotten that in any other way. Even if we had top 5 picks because we sucked for such a long time, who would we have taken that's better? Look how many bust early first-round picks there have been that are not better than Jordan Love today. But you made that pick, and I'm mad that you did, because I in my fake imagination, we would have won the Super Bowl with T. Higgins, and so now that we didn't, I hate you, and I will never change my mind. And now everything you do and every pick you make, I will try to make them out to be bad, and even when they're good, I'll say that they're bad because I don't want to give you credit. It's such a miserable kind of fan, and they drive me insane. Sorry, we'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Yo, Ryan, it's your Uncle Rico.
Howdy.
It's Sunday afternoon. Beautiful out. A little windy here in southern Wisconsin, but it's nice. I like it. I love it. I want some more of it.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was just listening to the talking heads blabber on about ESPN, guys. Once again, ESPN is garbage. Anyway, about how Lucas Van Ness is, I don't know, basically terrible, I guess, according to them. And, I don't know. I'm with you. What are they watching? What are they paying attention to? I mean, would we like better performance out of him from a top 15 pick or whatever? Sure. I mean, the sky is the limit. That's what you're looking for, is the sky, right? But, sure. You get decent performance, and it's better than terrible, and he's definitely not terrible. He's pretty okay. Last year, I don't know. I just don't know what they're looking at. Are they not looking at how many snaps he got? I mean, are they trying to say that then, since he was hurt, he's garbage? He wasn't on the field last year.
I saw somebody that posted, I think they used AI, and because they'd. So the thing that sucks is when I watch other people use AI, and this is where I can see why people hate AI, because people use it in ways that are like, oh God. Anyways, he basically, it looked like he asked AI how to discredit a post about his pressure rate. I had mentioned, I think yesterday or whatever, that Carson Caldwell posted his pressure rate and all that, and it garnered a ton of negative comments and whatnot. And somebody had posted, and I tried not to respond to any of them, but his annoyed me the most, so I responded to it. But it was essentially why pressure rate is not necessarily a good thing to use. And I looked at it, I'm like, I don't know what it is you think that you're doing. And somebody commented trying to explain why it's not good, and his whole thing was, well, when you look at pressure rate, then you have to assume that with more opportunities, you won't be as good. I don't know where you're getting that from. I don't know why. I mean, I understand it's possible that, I mean, we're not talking about 5 snaps here where you got one pressure and it's like, see, he's so good. We're talking about number 3 here. So there's a lot of pressure. So you use rate to explain how good they were on a snap-to-snap basis over a more than enough of an opportunity to be a number that you can trust. But you're telling me that I shouldn't trust it because if he gets more opportunities, he'll be worse? Like, where are you getting this from? What are you talking about? You're just making stuff up.
He did okay, excellent in some places, I guess. But anyways, yeah, he doesn't get enough sacks. Well, he got 2 starts, I think. And only 2 were starts. I mean, I don't know how they decide what's a start and what's not. If you're on the field this first snap of the game, I don't even know. I think that's kind of stupid. How many starts? It's snaps. How many snaps you get is what should determine that. Starts don't mean jack, I guess. But anyways, long story short, now we looked at the NFL sack leaders. See who we got. We got Myles Garrett. How did his team do? Does it really matter if Lucas Van Ness goes out and gets 92 sacks when that doesn't seem to be a measure of how your team does? sack leader, Myles Garrett, played for Cleveland. Cleveland sucks. They're a smoking pile of garbage. The Giants, E. Burns, 16.5 sacks. Giants, smoking pile of garbage. D. Hunter, third guy, 15 sacks. Houston, smoking pile of garbage. Hutchinson, Detroit, not great. Bonito from Denver. We're getting better here, but it just says that the amount of sacks the best sacker on your team gets doesn't mean shit. Anyways, all right, then. I just don't know how one can, their job.
3 minutes cut them off. There is a part 2, 3, 4, and 5 here, which I don't think we're going to get to all those, but my computer's freezing, so I can't pause it, but that's fine. Still recording me. Here's a secondary challenge to add on to your observation that sacks, the correlation between high sacks and wins are not great. Sometimes when you get to high sacks, you do see a good football team, even though the correlation is lacking. Here's a secondary correlate that I'd throw in there, just to compare against. Why don't you add in how good the quarterback is on those teams? So if you look at sacks, and then let's just say, however you would do this, subtract out or adjust for quarterback play. Do you know how much sacks would account for how good your team is? Basically 0. It wouldn't mean a damn thing. Do you know why? Because the correlation would follow almost perfectly the quarterback play. Go figure. Cleveland, bad quarterback, bad football team, to the degree that it's bad. The Giants, great pass rusher, or at least sack person, number guy, which again, this should make sense because we're talking about numbers that are less than once per game, right? Think about how small that number is. You're talking about thousands of plays. And the, 15 sacks are going to make the difference? I'm not saying sacks are not important. Of course they're important. They're great plays. They're great individual plays. But could you imagine if we treated, I don't know, let's put it this way. How much more important are touchdowns than sacks? The touchdowns are exactly points, right? It ultimately comes down to points. Everything comes down to points. But a touchdown directly correlates to points. A sack indirectly correlates to points. It does correlate to points, but indirectly. In other words, it would be less than 6 or 7 or however much a touchdown would be, 6.9. So if a touchdown correlates to 6.9 points and a sack correlates to 3 points, let's just say, I don't know exactly what it is because you're subtracting out them scoring and probably adding to the probability of you scoring. But let's say it's worth 3 points to get a sack. So a guy getting 10 sacks gives you 30 points. How many points does a quarterback give you just in the actual touchdowns themselves, not even including how many points first downs are, because first downs correlate to points, right? First downs. How about just completed passes correlate to points? If you add up all of this, and remember, you only care about sack, because we could say the same thing about pressures, about hurries, about hits, about tackles. All these things correlate to points, but you don't want to talk about any of those. You don't care about any of that stuff. The only thing that matters is sacks. You have reduced him down to something that correlates to nothing. The sacks themselves, if somebody gets 10 sacks, that correlates to 30 points. Okay, cool. So if, you know what, I'm gonna save this for tomorrow. I want to talk about this more in depth. I'm gonna actually do the math on this because this is driving me nuts. Let's do Uncle Rico part 2, and then we're gonna get out of here because we're closing in on time here.
Rico's back. How can one's job be to analyze football and then not analyze football? All these guys, there's all those people. Mark Tauscher, apparently he's a freaking tard too. How? What? I would like Mark Tauscher, but if you don't bother to look at any information before you talk about it and give opinions on it. If you want to say things like, I don't think they should have re-signed Lucas Van Ness based on something other than he didn't get any sacks because he didn't play. That makes zero sense. Anyways, y'all have a great week. Rico out.
And I'll be a little bit more gracious too in that I do have an advantage. I have a pause button here. I can hit pause and I can go look things up and I can think through things a little bit, whereas they're not doing that. They're running live. And so you have to have some live opinions, and you may have probably more bad opinions than somebody doing a podcast where you have a pause button. They also run for longer than I do. This is a, like a 1 hour deal here. Usually closer probably to 45 minutes, although I do several of them a day. But let's just say one podcast for 45 minutes compared to, I don't know, what do they run for? Like, is it just an hour, or do they do like 3 hours? Because I know a lot of the AM radio stuff, those guys will run for like 3 hours long, which is tough. I also know that they show up to the office at like 4 a.m. to make sure that they prepare, they read through the news, they get all this different stuff. But whatever. Maybe these guys don't do that. You would think a full 8 hour day, even if you were on for 3 hours, you probably should be in there for 5 hours getting through the news and researching stuff and forming opinions and everything else. But I don't know. I don't know what their day looks like. I'm not in radio. I don't know how all that stuff works. And some things break live, and so you have to have, although I do that too with breaking news podcasts, although those are only about 10 minutes long. Again, I will grant that it's a little bit more difficult to, pause and look things up and be up on things when you're live as opposed to doing a podcast where I have the luxury of doing that. So I'll grant you even that. But still, some of this stuff, man, come on. Again, like the fifth year option, everyone else seemed to be aware of it. And this didn't just spring on you. You had months to contemplate your thoughts on the fifth year option thing with Lucas Van Ness. This didn't just get sprung on you. I didn't know that was even an option, and suddenly they just did it. It's not like we go out and, like when we got Tyrod Taylor. I mean, that kind of sprung on you out of nowhere. Grant, you could have contemplated that, but if you didn't, I wouldn't hold it against you. I didn't. I never went through that specific scenario. This is something everybody was aware of. Everybody knew was lingering out there. I'm sure they probably talked about it before already and had opinions on it. So, whatever. I don't know. And again, just to clarify one final thing before we get out of here, there are two different things at play here with the fifth year option thing. Number one is whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea. This one's a little bit more up for interpretation. Maybe they're right that it's a bad idea. I've never heard a single good argument about why it's a bad idea from them. I heard them talk about this being too much money because they don't understand how little money this is. And then another person say that, we may lose him if we don't do it, which makes that an even worse idea. So I didn't hear any good arguments for not giving him a fifth year option. The bigger indictment to me, though, is being surprised by it. Because even if you think it's the wrong thing to do, I think for the most part, all of us, and by us, I mean probably a large portion of the fan base, but also, and again, I can't speak for everybody. I just, the couple things I saw from content creators on social media was, duh, of course this was going to happen. It's not just a matter of what you think should happen. It's a matter of, based on how business is done, based on how everything is kind of set up. And I understand that different players didn't get the fifth year option, but that's different. You should be able to look at the position he plays, how much he's contributed, and then the cost of what the fifth year option is, and say, this is an easy decision. They're going to do it. Regardless of whether or not you think they should, you should have known that they were going to do it. But you didn't know that. And that in and of itself is a problem. That is an area where it's like, why didn't I know that? Why was I so sure of something and it didn't happen? There's something wrong with the way that I look through this, and I need to recalibrate a couple things. Anywho, I'm going to end it at that. Y'all have a good rest of your day. Talk to you tonight. Tomorrow. Bye-bye.